will it make you not want to go back to medicine? And I will say, hell yes, it did for me. I will just say it's a bit of a regret and a loss in that sense. What the hell am I supposed to do? Which was the case for me. Just as hard to convince yourself to go back than it is to convince yourself to take the gap year, which is saying something. Hi, if you're new to this channel, my name is Elizabeth and I am usually a medical student in London. Last year, I interrupted my studies and took a gap year.
I have applied for an interruption from studies from university, which means that I will not be going back to university this August.
And ever since, I get so many questions asked on how the experience has been, whether I regret it, and all the pros and cons and how to manage things in this time. So I thought I would compile all your questions together and create a video. Now, all the questions that were asked of me were around regrets. So I've divided this video into two parts. The first will be the regrets or potential regrets and how I address these in terms of my personal gap year. And the second part will be the huge benefits or the things that I think are that I don't regret doing this gap year for. One major thing I want to say before I start this video is that everything that I benefit from or suffer from during my gap year is 100% due to the very specific conditions of my life that I am in, and honestly just due to my luck. So I just want to say everything that I am explaining or describing, please take with a pinch of salt, and they're definitely not recommendations, just a very, very raw and perhaps too transparent exploration into how this journey has been for me. So just for a bit of context before I get started, I have finished my 3 years of medical school. I am currently taking an interruption gap year, and that means that I will have 2 more years left when I return back to medical school next year, hopefully. Let's see. So yeah, that is the stage of a medical training that I am at the moment. And during this gap year, I have been essentially working on quite a few things. I'm a strategy consultant most of the time. I also work on this YouTube channel. I have a few newsletters, a podcast of my own, and also I just launched a course of my own. So there's quite a few things going on there in the background. So it hasn't necessarily been a lot of time off, but it's definitely been a break from my studies. So let's jump in. Firstly, the main theme that came out of why to regret a gap year and why I potentially regret a gap year was the idea of taking time out and a lot of panic of letting time rush past me and getting older and all of this stuff. This was, I think, a huge issue for me to start with medical school. So I am an older student. I took 3 gap years before starting university anyway. These were not by choice. I really, really wanted to go to university immediately after my high school. However, due to very specific conditions at the time, I had to keep deferring my place in university for 3 years. So I was already very, very primed with the idea of my life is running past me. My peers are graduating. My peers are getting married. My peers are in work already and earning so much money and buying houses. And I'm just sitting here waiting to start university. I think that eventually this does tend to fade a bit. When I was first considering my gap year, this was one of the most acute things that was on my mind at the time. So last summer, when I was really considering my gap year, I was just counting the numbers of how old I would be when I would graduate, and then just thinking, oh, can I afford this like extra space in my life, and just pause everything, and everything's just going to take a year longer. Why would I do this? Let's just power through. And there's this huge notion of powering through and getting it finished, and my perspective has completely shifted on that right now so much. I think that is absolute bullshit. I think that there is genuinely no rush, because where are you trying to get to? I think very, very often, especially in medicine, there's this view of, because you have so many milestones that you need to hit, like there's the next exam, and then there's the next exam, and your next portfolio, and your training pathway, and everything is divided into 2 years, plus 4 years, plus 5 years. So it seems as though these things are just milestones that you need to reach and tick box exercises that you need to do. These are very, what I like to use, this is a book that I read on Infinite Games. It's a very finite game. It's you do something and you complete it. While I think life is more of an infinite game, if you just take a step back. And what I did is I took a step back and I looked at the whole perspective, and I was like, where am I trying to go? And there was nowhere specific I was trying to go. I'm not trying to reach a certain thing. To me, there's no inherent pleasure in kind of graduating and becoming a doctor and, oh my God, I did this. And then, oh my God, I finished my junior doctor training, and oh my God, I'm a consultant now. That necessarily doesn't give me too much pleasure. It did at one point of my life, that imagining that, but now it's rather the point of my life is for me to be healthy and happy and at peace, and whatever that looks like, a year here, 2 years there, graduating at 35, maybe I do an extra year and then I take a gap year and then I do an extra year. It doesn't matter. It really, really doesn't matter to me. I think that there is no rush. and I needed to let go of this grasping onto things, not only in medicine, but in so many different aspects of my life. And letting go of this control has been a very good exercise for me to kind of be a bit more at peace with where I'm going. So I think it was just the perspective shift of where am I trying to go and why does this number matter? What if you were suddenly told that, I don't know, actually there was an issue with your birth certificate and you were born 3 years ago? Would you have like Phoebe in Friends, when she got told that, hey, the sister told her that she was a year older, and she was like, oh my God, I'm already 30. That was such a difficult situation for her. But imagine that was for you. In the end of the day, the numbers just don't matter. There is no rush to get anywhere. You could be a year older, a year younger. I think letting go of the number game is a very important exercise to do as soon as possible, because at some point, because of society, we start seeing 3s in front of things and 4s in front of things and thinking that, oh my God, time has passed. But that was a very long ramble already. Oh my God, this is going to be a long video. In the sense of, yeah, these things just don't matter. And the sooner I realize that, the better for me. And I've fully embraced it. There's no rush. It's not about the numbers. This feels right now, or I need to do this right now. There's no choice. Let's just do it and embrace it and move on. The next question that came up a lot and was related to this was the panic of my friends graduating first or having no friends next year. And I kind of cheated on this because after the 3rd year in medical school, the majority of people will intercalate, which means that they will take a year out, do another degree, and then they will return back to university. So a lot of the people that I was in my year with have chosen this. A lot haven't, especially because a lot of my friends tend to be postgraduates, so they already have a degree, so they just chose to continue. A lot of them will now be graduating a year earlier, but a lot of them will be at the same stage with me. Having said that, even if no one was there, again, it was so important for me to take this gap at this time, and I really felt that it was the right thing. So I don't think friendships are dependent on kind of the situation that you are in as much, if they're true friendships, if that makes sense. And especially in medicine, you don't get any choice. You get placed in different hospitals across different sites. And even when you're sitting in exams, very often you don't see your friends. So I don't think there would be a big difference. I'm still in contact with my friends, so I don't think it would be an issue in that sort of way. Yes, sometimes I feel, perhaps actually, when I see my friends graduate next year, I'll feel like, oh, that could have been me. But for now, I just feel that that's not a main issue. And yeah, I don't worry about that as much. The next question I got asked a lot was on not having a purpose and purpose in general. I think this is only an issue if the majority of your purpose or all your purpose comes from medicine and suddenly that's not there and you think, what the hell am I supposed to do? Which was the case for me, because so much of my life was built around medicine. And when I thought that I wasn't doing this anymore, for a moment, I did have the sense of, oh my God, what now? Where does this go? And what if I don't return? What will happen? I think it's a dangerous place to be, but it's a very healthy exercise to do in the long term. And this is potentially something that I would recommend lightly to people who are in medicine to kind of, I think, just even realize for a second how much of your identity and self-worth is tied around this thing that you're doing, because you never want that to be just one thing. I think I got told this by a doctor once and it made me cry. It was a one-to-one that I had with a doctor, and she just sat me down. She said, Elizabeth, you are so much more than your accomplishments. I don't know why. It was the first time at the age of 24 that someone had told this to me, but it really hit me so hard. And I just spent so much time thinking about this because I realized there was almost nothing there apart from my accomplishments that determined my self-worth almost. I think leaving medicine, this was very, very healthy because it made me realize that, no, actually, you have value as a person in your own right. And these are just things that you do, and you might do them very well and they may help other people, and that's fine, but that doesn't add or take away from who you are as a person, because you are valuable in your own right. So I think it's a very healthy exercise that I've done in trying to find self-worth and value and purpose outside of medicine, which I've definitely found now. And it's much more healthier than to make an informed decision of kind of setting boundaries. Again, it's not displacing worth. It's not that now my worth is kind of, oh, am I good at strategy? Am I good at my day job? It's not that. It's, Elizabeth, is she good? Is she okay? Is she happy? And these are just things that I do. And I think I only managed to fully do this after leaving medicine. So I think this was a huge benefit and not a regret, definitely, that I had in terms of taking a gap year. The next question is justifying it to others. This is so difficult. I actually have not shared the reasons that I took a gap year online yet. And I think at some point I might. I'm just not ready to talk about it still now. It's deeply personal. And I don't know what the format would look like necessarily, or how to explain these things, or how much emotion can you show online. So I'm not too sure about that. And when it comes to people asking it depends on how well I know the people. So the closest people in my life and the people at my job kind of know the reasons specifically that I took a gap year, because it is important information to them and I feel comfortable sharing it. If I'm close to someone, I think in my day-to-day life, I'm really, really open. So if I feel comfortable in a situation, I'll very easily say what were the reasons that I took a gap year. However, it's not something that I've shared online. And in terms of justifying it to people, I don't. If someone asks me why did you take a gap year, because I wanted to, and no one can say much to that. And this kind of ties on to the next one, which is regrets in terms of parents' reaction. My gap year was very, very spontaneous. So I thought about it seriously one morning. By lunch, I had decided that I was going to do it. And then I sent an email to my university, and then I called my mum and dad, and then the next day the university confirmed it. So the turnaround was literally 24 hours for this whole thing, from my parents having no clue that I was even considering this to me going, hey, I'm not going back to uni in August. So that was very scary. I think my mum understood it more. I think my dad was very scared because I think my dad was concerned that I wouldn't go back, which is something that I'm going to address a bit later. But I think my dad was a bit concerned about that, especially throughout my gap year, always asking me, are you going to go back? And I think when it comes to parents, when you are a certain age, and if you have a sort of a good relationship with your parents, it's easy enough to say, I realize your concern, and recognize where their concern or anxiety is coming around. Because if they're having a highly emotional reaction, it's likely because they are assuming that you are not considering things that you actually have considered. So I think telling that to them and saying, hey, tell me what's concerning you right now. Are you worried because I am not listening to you, or you think that I'm not listening to you? Are you worried because I'm doing this to spite you or go against what you wanted? Are you worried because I think I haven't considered the risks? And kind of exploring them with your parent and saying, actually, I have considered this, and I have considered this and that and that. But in the end of the day, if you say, but I need this, and this is, which is what I said, is that I need this, and this will make me happier and healthier, and I really, really need to do this right now. There's very little that a parent can say, I think, sometimes, to you saying that, no, but I need this, and this is what I need, and I've decided it. And I think that was a situation that I was in with my parents. Again, things are very different because I live away from my parents and I am kind of financially independent, so a lot of these things don't muddy up the situation. But I think it was difficult to break it to my parents. I don't think it's something that they expected, and but at the moment I think they are just happy either way. I think my mom doesn't want me to go back to medical school, but my dad does. So yeah, there's that with parents. The next question is such a legitimate one, and that's the panic of forgetting things in medicine. This, I would say, 100% is true. I do have a bit of panic around this because I do realize I have forgotten so much. I think that I don't have a specific plan for this in place, just because the next few months of my life are going to be extremely intense. But maybe in 2 months I will start revising again, and that's something that I might do online. Maybe do some live streams of questions, or just do some live stream study with me. That would be something quite cool, I think. But I do need to, I think, revise quite a bit more and do more work when I start again, in terms of catching up. Having said that, because I took 3 gap years between my high school and university, I didn't actually find that even in 3 years I had lost a lot of information compared to my peers. I was actually reading a lot of medical stuff in the meantime though, so maybe there was a bit of that. But I think that we overestimate how much we forget, and that if the foundations are solid, then very, very easily you can catch up with these things again. And then it depends on where your kind of pride lies, I guess. I think for me in medicine, this shifted very fast. In the beginning, I was very much, I want to know all the details. I want to be that girl who just knows, that pathway, it knows that the name of that enzyme. And that's completely changed now, where I'm like, I don't actually care about that stuff. I am much more interested in the important, the things that I consider to be essential in medicine, which is how you deal with patients and your patient care and your communication, and understanding the basic things that are applicable in hospital, in real life, and the very important things. Because I've realized that even though I spent so much energy learning these small facts, they always fade so fast. In a few months, definitely in a few years, they'll all be forgotten, while the rest are the things that remain there, and I think would make me likely a better clinician. So I think in that sense, yes, I'm sad that I'm probably not going to be the brightest person in any room in medicine when I go back, but at the same time, I would just say it's a bit of a regret and a loss in that sense, but not enough for me to regret my whole gap year. The next one was setting goals during your gap year. This is interesting. The spontaneity with which I took mine meant that there was not a lot of time for goal setting, and also I'm not a goal setting person. I just don't like goals in general. and therefore I had none, but this was not out of character for me. So if you're the sort of person who likes goal setting, I guess you can set some for your gap year. That would be great. I'm the sort of person who hates specific goals, so I don't set them in general. So yeah, I didn't set any, and I'm very happy with that situation. Ooh, this is a very good one. Did you make a pros and cons list? I did, but it was impossible. And the reason for that is there's just so much unknowns. If you do a pros and cons list for leaving medicine and staying in medicine, it's so hard because you don't know where things will go. You don't know how you will feel in the future. I don't know I'm making decisions for a person that I don't know. I don't know who I'm going to be in 5 years. Just like I made a decision for myself now, when I first got into medical school, I would be making a decision for Elizabeth in 5 years if I left medical school or took a gap year. And I just don't know who the hell that girl is and what she wants and who she is. And I've realized that there's just no point there, especially with the unknown unknowns and with even known unknowns. I'm like, oh, I don't know how I'm going to feel. And I don't know actually what my experience of medical school will be and how much free time I will have and if I can balance these things. And I just had no answers for these. So in the end of the day, I scrapped the pros and cons list and I just went with my gut. And I think that's the best thing to do in this case. At least for me, it was an emotional decision. It was not a pros and cons list because, well, actually, if it was a pros and cons list, I think I would have to leave anyway. But there's a part of me that felt, oh, you can get over these things while in medical school. You don't need to leave medicine. So I don't think I was being rational with my pros and cons anyway. So for me, it was an emotional decision. I felt, yep, actually, I'm going to stop this now. So that's how I made the decision. The last one on regrets of a gap year is the one very, very legitimate one is, will it make you not want to go back to medicine? And I will say, hell yes, it did for me. And this was the most scary thing, I think. And this is one reason where I would potentially warn against a gap year. But then again, if you take a gap year and you realize you don't want to do something, then maybe it's not the right thing for you. But anyway, in the beginning, I missed hospital and I missed medicine, but that only lasted for a few months. And then after that, I thought, oh, there's just so much going on in my life and there's so many other things happening. And very funnily, 100% of people in the medical field, especially trained doctors, and the more senior they are, the more they would tell me, don't go back. Just don't make the mistake of going back. Just stay away. It's so good that you have other things that you can do and you enjoy. Don't go back. And then it was either the people who are very junior in medicine, so early medical students, or it was people who were not in medicine who were saying, oh, you have to go back. It's so good for you. Like my parents, for example. So that was a very interesting observation I had. And equally, I felt that, oh, there's so many things that I'm doing now that I enjoy. Is it worth completing medical school? Do I still want to be a doctor at some point? I think a gap year will definitely do that to you, especially if you enjoy your gap year, if you find something that it feels like it's your calling, or if you find something that you deeply enjoy outside of medicine, it becomes so difficult to convince yourself to go back, especially in my case where if I would leave, I would still have a diploma in medical sciences because I've completed the 3-year degree. So I don't know. I think this one is very, very risky. In my case, I think I've decided that I am going to go back, but I would just say it's just as hard to convince yourself to go back than it is to convince yourself to take the gap year, which is saying something because convincing myself to take that gap year was definitely one of the hardest things I've ever done. And yeah, so it's very, very difficult both ways. I think one of my close friends said this to me, where he said, don't take a gap year, just leave, because if you take a gap year, you're never going to go back. And I think it is so hard to do that. That's a slight warning that I do give if you take a gap year during university. Now, the last part of this video is going to be the pros and the things that I absolutely don't regret doing in my gap year that I think are incredible. And the first one was that it gave me so much time to sort out my mental health. I've been in a lot of therapy in my gap year and I've been dealing with a lot of issues that I have racked up my whole life, especially during lockdown. And I think my gap year gave me the space to do this without so many deadlines. I did have deadlines because I still had a job the whole time, but not the medical deadlines and the medical guilt that I would have. It was very difficult to do these things while being in medical school, while being outside of medical school. I think it's grown me so much in terms of my mental health and my peace and my kind of self-exploration and understanding. So I think that this has been such a good space to do this. Absolutely would recommend for that reason. The second reason that I really delved in already was finding yourself outside of medicine. I think doing these other things have uncovered so much of me as a person that I don't think I would have ever found if I stayed in medicine only. And also it's opened up my eyes to specific aspects of medicine that I can find elsewhere. In the end of the day, my favorite part of medicine is sitting down in front of a patient. That is why I'm doing the job. It's not for the admin. I don't think it is for anyone. It's not about running around in the hospital. It's just also for the banter between doctors and kind of the connections that you get in working in a team. So teamwork and also being in front of a patient and getting to help someone. And these are the two things that I love the most about medicine. But the latter, I kind of find in consulting and in helping people and in coaching and having calls with people and helping them grow in other aspects of their life. I have found doing that to an extent, never comparable to medicine, because health, I think, is on a different level. But that sort of pleasure is the same that I find in that sort of job, while otherwise working in a team are things that you can get quite easily in many different jobs. So I found that I can in a way engineer a sort of career that is 100% just my favorite parts of medicine, but lacks the reward, which is the frustrating part. But anyway, I think finding and testing out different waters, I've grown so much in my knowledge, because before my knowledge was 100% just medicine based and customer service based, and now I know so much about branding and marketing and business and finance and customer profiling and online courses especially, which is a super niche thing to know about, and knowledge management and the internet and social media. So there's so much that I've learned outside of medicine with a lot of the skills that medical training has taught me that has been extremely valuable. So that's something that I really like. And I think even though I've really expanded the range of things that I can potentially do in my future and the range of expertise that I have, at the same time, I think by diluting my self-worth from just medicine, it's just gone to nothing and it's just gone to me being. And I think, oh, I have all these options now, which give me a lot more calmness, because I think, at least for me, I always thought that it was either medicine or nothing and I would never be good at anything else. And I think finding and seeing that I can potentially enjoy and be just as good as, if not better at other things, then that makes me very, I think, happy, and it's a very liberating way to live my life from now on. The third reason, and of course this is personal, is growing my YouTube channel and starting my podcast. I would not have started my podcast, I think, if I was back in medical school, although my channel might have grown more because medical content does tend to do well. So I don't know about that one, but I think these two have been very fun. Being a creator again as an adult was something that I thought I wouldn't be able to do after I kind of grew up and didn't have the extra time in medicine. So this has been really fun for me. And lastly, it kind of gave me a little reset button to take some separation between everything that I was doing and approach it with a different eye. And also gaining these other skills put me in a position of empowerment where it was no longer the need of, oh, I have these loans, I need to continue this, I've committed to this, but rather going, okay, what are the reasons you want to do this? Do you actually want to do this? Do you want to try it out? And everything becomes more of a, let's try this out and see how it goes. And life is long. There is no rush and there is no final destination to get to, but rather you just enjoy things for what they are in the moment and you take value from what they are in the moment. I think the biggest shift for me has been thinking that I always thought that I would be proud of myself when I graduated medical school, and there was nothing to be proud of, especially if I left. That would just be embarrassing. Like, the whole thing that I did in medicine would be a failure and an embarrassment, and that is not the case at all. It's not a failure, it's not an embarrassment. I'm so proud and happy now when I look back at the things that I did, that even if I never go back or I never continue my studies, that's something amazing that I did in medicine, and I'm really happy about it. And I don't need to wait to finish things to enjoy them. And the same way, when I go back, hopefully it will be fun by value and virtue of being there. It will be fun because I know I chose to be there and I have these other options. It will be fun because I know I can shape my life in a very empowered way and in a way that I enjoy. And it'll be fun because hopefully I'll be much healthier when I go back to medicine. So yeah, that was my view on my gap year. Yes, I don't regret it in the slightest. I think it is one of the best decisions I have made in my life. And I would 100%, oh, no, wait, I can't say that. And I would potentially recommend it to many people. Having said this, I asked 4 of my friends who have taken gap years, and all of them said it was the best decision they've ever made. So I know that's not a huge sample size, but I've yet to meet someone who regrets their gap year. Everyone that I've met just raves about it so much. So I think, do your research, ask the people around you, do some rational thinking into why you're doing it, how you can fill in this time and how you will feel yourself and what support system you have in place, and do you have people around you who support your decision and will support you if you go back or don't go back. And do remember that you're really risking finishing your career, because it's very, very difficult, at least in my experience, to want to return after doing this. But yeah, this was the video. I did not realize, I did not think it would be so long. I thought it would just be a short little, no, I don't regret it, it was great, this is the reason, and it turned into a huge rant. So thank you for bearing with me, honestly, if you made it so far, and thank you for sending in all your questions. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. Be kind to yourself and others, and don't believe everything you think. Thanks. Bye.